Well, hello everyone. Thank you for your time and attendance to our webinar. Buy now, pay later. Is it customers' wildest dream or worst nightmare? Today, customers can buy all that they desire and pay in interest-free installments, all without the hassle of applying for credit cards or dealing with troublesome processes. FinTech has made this happen. However, with growing concerns around rising debts and enabling shopaholics, is buy now, pay later customers' wildest dreams or worst nightmare coming true? Join us on our first fireside chat in Sri Lanka with Mr. Michele Tucci, Chief Product Officer at Credolab, and Mr. Kukaraj Tharmasegaram, co-founder at Mintpay, as they open up on the topic of BNPL. Without further ado, allow me to hand the time now to Michele. Michele, please.
Thank you, Kaison. Hello, everybody. Hello, Raj. Good to have you on this webinar. I know you have a lot to share with us and quite an interesting point of view on a market that, especially in Asia, is often overlooked. But maybe because of shadows coming from bigger, more populous countries like Indonesia or India or Bangladesh. Before we go into the topic of today's discussion, please share with us a bit of your background and how did you come to the Mintpay idea?
First of all, thank you for having me today. And so basically after 2015, so 2015 is when I finished my bachelor's. So I did my bachelor's in electrical and computer system engineering from Monash, Malaysia. So once I finished my degree, I came back to Sri Lanka to start my career. And in Sri Lanka, as most of the people who go abroad to study, once you come back, you get a corporate, and like I also got a really good corporate and started my career. And that's when I was also exposed to my first credit card. Like anyone, you get a salary check and now you get a credit card, and yeah, all good. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to buy my first iPhone. And that time I was so surprised with the fact that I was able to afford that iPhone so easily, because that credit card had an offer for that particular iPhone where I can buy it and pay it on 24-month installment without any interest. And so you basically divide the total cost by 24 and you're going to pay without any interest. It was really magical for me, and I was so surprised. But that time is where I realized, okay, I had another huge problem from uni time, and even that time was basically I do work out a lot. So I buy these protein supplements, which is expensive in Malaysia as well as in Sri Lanka. It's not as expensive as an iPhone, but it would be good if you can put it on 2 months installment, because I don't finish that supplement in a month. Usually I use it for 2 months, 2.5 months. So I always think, why can't I buy it on 2 months installment, or like pay it over 2 months, because I'm not going to finish this month, and this is like a quite a bit big of a hit for me, and what can I do? And then once I saw this credit card offers, I was looking for any other offer where I could buy this protein, and there's nothing. There's zero offers that was given to this protein or any other product. And that's the same time one of my friend who was abroad came down to Sri Lanka, who told me about this concept that is trending in his country called buy now, pay later. So as curious person I am, I just went and did some research to see, okay, what is this buy now, pay later, and what is this all about? And to realize this buy now, pay later is is the solution that I have been looking for myself. And it's not only it's good for me. If you look at Sri Lanka, which is predominantly driven by cash, and if you see everyone transact with cash, I mean, even e-commerce, 80% of the e-commerce is done through cash. And so cash driven market where even the credit card penetration rate is only 5%, this solution perfectly fits a market like Sri Lanka also. And that's where I started this whole journey of buy now, pay later, and launched the product last September 2020. And here we are. Right now, we have more than 100% growth month on month. And yeah, that's
So
the
this
whole
is
journey.
where need is the mother of inventions, right? You find you want to have something you can't, and you find a way to have it. So, but on the credit card side, those are offers that are quite expensive to maintain, because somebody's been funding that loan book for you to afford an iPhone. But those are they tend to be issuers, they tend to be large banks. Now what you are seeing is that when you flip that model over to a startup, then a number of challenges come up. I think we are going straight into the core of the problem. No, the BNPL being an old EMI kind of solution, equal monthly installments, repackaged with a different revenue model and brought to a two-sided market where you have merchants on one side and consumers on the other side. So what's your take on the Sri Lankan proposition in particular? How did you customize the BNPL proposition to a Sri Lankan market?
Yeah. So see, I always ask this question from a lot of people. I ask them, okay, just ask yourself why BNPL in 2015 or 2020, not in 1970s, 1980s, and how a startup can take that risk. Because if you look at credit card offers, credit card usually in Sri Lanka, EMIs, they only look at electronics because their strategy is if the person can't pay back, you recover the product, sell it back, recover part of the cost. So they don't go into products which are more tangible, like clothing, protein, like all these stuff which a buy now pay later would tap in. They don't do because they look at it risky. And that's the same question anyone could ask. Okay, why buy now pay later in 2020? And the answer is basically is AI and machine learning and data analytics. How as a startup we can create a understand the credit worthiness of an individual, not having to rely solely on CRIP or any banking data. Looking at alternative data, how can you create this figure, the customer figure, and what is his net worth and how trustworthy he is the basically the key for any buy now pay later. So if you look at Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka is a mark. If you're doing buy now pay later in Sri Lanka, is like doing a stress testing on the whole buy now pay later business model itself. Because Sri Lanka, when we started also there was a lot of pushback because when we were starting itself, Sri Lanka already had the Easter attack happen, and which has hampered a lot of livelihood of tourism sector, which in turn increased the NPL, non-performing loan ratio of Sri Lanka. And when we were launching itself, it was around 12 to 14%. So like the pushback was immense. No one thought buy now pay later could work in any other country. Working in a developing country like Sri Lanka, no one thought it would work. And more than that, CRIP is not a startup can have access to CRIP, and CRIP was mostly based on banking data. Only bank has access. And even if you look at NI identification as an individual, you have each on as an identification. No, that is not digital, so you have only a identification card. So how are we gonna put all these puzzle together, create a solution that not only works, it has to be seamless, because buy now pay later is all about seamless and customer experience. You can't expect a customer to go get a CRIP report, come back and give you the CRIP report, and then onboard him and give him buy now pay later. You're going back to lending. So putting all these pieces together and creating that seamless experience is what the first challenge we had to tackle, and we had to tackle in a more responsible way, because understanding the risk with a market like Sri Lanka. So that's for that we around 6 to 8 months of research to understand basically different biopilot models, more than biopilot model, different ways to mitigate risk. It could be social media data, it could be telco data, it could be phone data, it could be data, digital footprint. So how can you use this data for this alternative credit scoring, and how can you utilize this data market like Sri Lanka to understand the risk and roll out a product like this to the market like Sri Lanka? That was a huge benefit for us.
Yeah, it's I mean, you summarized the challenges that most lenders have across emerging markets. I guess in Sri Lanka you have also the young population which demands new solutions, is going into e-commerce heavily, and I believe you have also a quite a high percentage of cash on delivery type of payment option. So you effectively go up against cash as a preferred payment method, and you need to be as easy to transact as cash. And And so cash on delivery, I think you mentioned in the past conversations we had that it's about 70% of all e-commerce transactions. Yeah, Raj, I don't know if you caught my question.
I was a bit. You're talking about cash on delivery, right? No,
Yeah, I
because
was
it's
talking about cash on delivery. I was talking about cash on delivery as a pain point of e-commerce, and
okay,
but I see that the connection is not
So,
stable.
in Sri Lanka, yeah. So, like you mentioned, Sri Lanka e-commerce. Even though e-commerce and e-commerce started in Sri Lanka, the uh, the growth very slow because of a couple of reasons. One is last mile delivery, and second one is cash on delivery. See, cash on delivery in Sri Lanka is a huge pain point for any merchant because at the end of the day, as a merchant, you have to trust a courier guy to collect all your cash for all your purchases and come and weekly to your account. And for this, they anyway charge a commission for this cash on delivery. And cash on delivery purchases are not done till the customer pays you the money. So e-commerce said, okay, check out, I'll pay with cash. Really actually gives the cash to the courier guy, the purchase is not done. So there are situations where the purchase is done, where customer takes some the merchant sells the product to the customer, but at the point of doing the product, they have said, okay, I'm going ahead with this purchase. So this has been a huge change for so for us addressing this for merchant on top of conversion and also utility factor. If you look at around 8% of people cash on delivery, initially almost at least 20% of this 80% market into card because this 20 or 30% of the people who are doing cash on delivery are not the one who doesn't have access to banking sector. It's just that they don't trust on the product and also service. So they just want to have the product before they pay for it. So buy now pay later in that way helps to solve this issue because you are only paying one third of the cost of the product. And if you don't like the product, you can always come and talk to us or talk to the merchant. You can so that is bridging that gap of not trusting the product and helping these merchants increase more card purchase. And this creates such a wonderful experience for merchant because cash on delivery, as far as any merchant, everyone hates it. If they can do anything to get out of cash on delivery, they will love it.
But that means also that you need to generate trust. No, you need to, the customer that wants to pay using Mintpay, they need to trust you first, that you are partnering with a merchant that they can also trust. So you are in between of this two-sided ecosystem where if anything goes wrong, maybe Mintpay will be blamed for it, right? So how do you select merchants that allow you to keep this seamless experience and keep the trust high?
Yes, so trust is one of the crucial thing, especially for Sri Lanka. It's not only creating the trust on us, because a developing market like Sri Lanka or India is one of the first focus for any of these predatory loan services. These mobile app based loan services which try to trick you to download their app, and then they have access to your mobile phone, and then they look at your images and messages, and they use that as the recovery mechanism to get the loan back. It's number one for countries like Sri Lanka and India. So right before we launched it, also one of the global companies, very well known global company, was operating in Sri Lanka. They were using these practices, and a couple of months before we launched, Sri Lankan Central Bank put out a guideline saying, if anyone comes and says no interest, no fee, don't trust them because they are going to take your money and they're going to do all this. And there's a huge article. So as a buy now pay later, first in Sri Lanka, we had to create the trust with the customer. And rightly, how you pointed out, more than that, customers also had a fear of transacting with cards on online. So there's always the fear when you put your card information online, someone is going to steal that information and going to take on. So that trust also we had to create it with the customer, and to make them use their card on our platform, because any buy now pay later would save the card information for the recovery of the other installment. So we had to generate that trust. So what couple of things we did was being as transparent as possible, and also we started working with a local bank, and we partnered with the bank and created more trust for us in Sri Lanka. And also the when we onboard merchants, we also make sure we onboard the right merchant. Well, money laundering could be easily done with buy now pay later, and that is another red flag everyone talks about. So we also do KYC with merchants when we onboard, and we make sure we onboard the right merchant, and the service is not being misused, and things are kept in the right way.
Yeah, and how do you decide who is the right merchant? Is it only based on the merchant category and the actual goods that may be good candidates for a buy now pay later proposition, or it's more of a lifestyle type of offering that you're building?
So we have level by level. First thing, we will obviously do the KYC for the merchant. If it's a private company or a public company, whatever, we do the KYC, usual KYC. And then we also make sure the merchant either sells products that are made in Sri Lanka. If he's selling products that are global, those are not counterfeit. And also the next thing we look at is also merchant, how merchant customer service, because as a company we don't want to be in a position where, even though we give the best customer service available, if our merchant can't keep up to the standard, then the whole customer experience is ruined. For us, everyday customer experience comes number one. Anything, there shouldn't be any complaint from customer saying, okay, this service didn't work, or I didn't get this product, we don't like it, this is not working. So these are few stuff we make sure these merchants and everyone follows the standard, and quality control is key, especially a market like Sri Lanka, because customer service sometimes overlooked in some places. We as a startup, we want to make sure customer service is number one.
Yeah, and that also goes hand in hand with the transparency, right? So you build trust, you inform your customers at every touch point, and you keep them abreast of what's coming. No, buy now pay later is in other markets is being under scrutiny of the regulator because it's too good to be true, right? Sometimes advertising messages are crafted in a way that could be to the point that could be even misleading. So how do you keep the customer informed of what fees, if any, are coming to them?
Yes. So, first of all, our messaging from day one has been, it's not a way for you to overspend. It's a way for you to budget your spending. It's not where you go buy everything you want and you can't end up paying and you go into debt. What you do is understand what you really need, and if you can't pay it in a month, you budget it. So one is from messaging, from day one, messaging has been that. And second, what we do is we clearly understand the credit worthiness and ability to repay and intention to repay of each customer before we lend out, because at the end of the day, we don't want to lend out to a customer who would not be able to pay back, and he goes into financial stress because of us, and it starts snowballing. So this evaluation of these customers and how they can transact is key. And another thing, if you look at Sri Lankan market globally, you would trade for the growth, because if you look at any other country in buy now pay later, the growth is one of the key factors. You grow as fast as possible, but once you come to a developing country, you have to focus on growth. But growth without looking at the risk would, at the end of the day, you will grow, but down the line, you won't be there because you have lost all your money. So that also another key reason for a buy now pay later that operating from Sri Lanka, our focus would be different. Not to not to grow exponentially and lose all our money. So grow, but grow responsibly. So that's the same way we tell our customers also, and the same messaging has been there from throughout day one.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you are offering a zero fees, zero interest payment option, but you are paying the merchant upfront. So you also have some cost of funds that you need to cater for. So I think what I'm hearing you saying is that you want customers to actually pay you back, because if not, then it would be also too expensive for you to keep having these funds, losing these principal amounts.
Yeah.
And is there any particular journey that you have implemented to guide customers in this budgeting idea, educating them into on the concepts of budgeting? And because in emerging markets, often we find banks taking the lead role in terms of educating from a financial literacy point of view. And for the first time, I hear you saying that buy now, pay later can be used as a budgeting tool, which is an interesting proposition. But I don't know how difficult it is to actually explain it to a consumer.
Yeah, so the way we explain it basically would be one is it start from how it basically the UI UX itself. When we design the UI UX, we understand need to be communicated to the consumer. If you want open, you show certain of certain things and you put certain things below. So from day one, when we design the UI UX, make sure we can correctly it way for budget, and then also we keep consumers on check, because when you start with a the credit limit is to one or two shopping on any customer in Sri Lanka. When we start with us, we have a credit fixed credit limit. So you would do one two only with that. Then after look at his behavior as well. So once you finish this one of the, we look at how you have transacted, you have repaid, pattern in which you have been repaying, and the frequency in which you have been purchasing. Then we try to understand whether this guy is a salaried individual, whether he's a holic, whether he has he's employed, whether he's a responsible. And so these information get from his behavioral scoring. And based on that, get the limit, making sure the customer that can customer have beyond a certain limit of it at a certain point of time. So most of these trying to make the customer budgeted and trying to make it are done through the technology itself, and that is one of the reasons. See, we have had situations where customers have directly messaged us and said, what, this is so because without buy this product which I always wanted to buy, and so far I couldn't get anything something close to this. So this is coming from the customer. So that is the whole way we have been operating is basically trying to make sure this is a budgeting tool, not something we can overspend.
Yeah, let's switch gears a little bit. We spent a lot of time talking about consumers. What about merchants? So buy now, pay later is a way for them to increase sales, to reduce cart abandonment, or at least this is what we keep reading from Anglo-Saxon kind of media. Is it the case for Sri Lanka as well? What are the benefits that the merchants working with you are experiencing now?
So the first benefit is so a market certain card abandonment. So you usually if as a merchant you do a social media campaign and you try to drive the traffic to your website, and so a lot of people triggered by this campaign. But if you look at credit card, 5%. So not everyone has the ability to pay immediately when they want, and that's where a solution like buy now pay later comes and perfectly fit in. That tells okay, it's okay, you don't have to worry, you can just pay a third of your total cost and the remaining on installment. That's fine. So in that way we are increase their reduce customer churn on their website, increase the basket size. We see customers who usually would have bought 3,000 would buy for 5,000, but in a responsible way, because they buy wouldn't transact, they would buy too much on one time itself. So we need to increase the sales and reduce customer churn for all the merchants.
This is you broke up a little bit, so in some cases I didn't catch the full answer, but it looks like a winning proposition, and that's why it is taking off from both consumers and merchants are benefiting from it. What do you think banks are when banks are looking at a Mintpay type of solution? Are they scared? Are they looking to partner up? Are they skeptical? What's the reaction of banks?
So Sri Lankan banks have been quite open because initially it's partner with one of the banks as our custodian bank for most of the payment process, and also a lot of banks are already engaging with us ways to work with link out with how we could do give the banks look at way where they can tap into a segment they don't understand. So we can understanding of this millennial segment. So possess of technical capabilities we use for their benefit as well in with this don't have credit card and how credit card to this which the this
Yeah, the connection was again a little bit unstable. Let's see if we are luckier now with the next question. You've been growing 100% month on month now, and this is fantastic. What's ahead of you in the next 2 quarters? Is there the high season coming for you? Is that a Black Friday in the US type of event in Sri Lanka that you need to be ready for? And if so, how are you getting ready for it?
So a couple of ways we look at it. One is from technical point of view and from operational point of view. From technical point of view, from day one, we as a company we develop everything not only to fit to a smaller market like Sri Lanka. Also, we look at how we could grow. So say for example, like a Singles Day or Black Friday, when the traffic is come from technology point of view, we have all the existing mechanism to support something like that. And from operational point of view, also as a startup, when we initially developed it itself, we made sure almost 90% of everything is automated. There is no manual processes, because more the manual process there can be more errors, and more the errors there can be more bad customer experience. So we made sure from day one most of it are automated. So in that way, so even right now if you look at it, the size of the team for the level of operation we do is quite small, but we were able to do such a big operation because of our automated system. So we believe even any Black Friday or Singles Day kind of event at this rate, we would be able to support it for this year. Probably next year with more even higher merchants, we might be have to upgrade some of the stuff what we have right now. But at this point, this year definitely we'll be able to manage it.
Yeah, manual processes, they become huge bottlenecks. I remember the first time I came to this region, I was working for MasterCard, and a credit card was in the Philippines, for instance, was issued in 14 days. So customers would walk away from a branch and even forget they applied for a credit card by the time they received one. So now, of course, things have changed a lot, and automation and technology has allowed us to do a lot more. Do you have regional plans? So it seems like you are getting Sri Lanka right. But what about India? What about neighboring countries?
Yeah, so see that the things we had to do for Sri Lankan market, specifically if you look at it when you're onboarding also, like I mentioned, ID. So Sri Lankan IDs are physical. You don't have anything electronic. You don't have APIs to call and check for. So we develop technologies with which even these physical IDs and everything you can onboard within 2 minutes. The maximum onboarding time is 2 minutes in our platform. So these technologies we anyway think is very useful for countries like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan. And also, if you look at the other side from merchants' point of view, when you're doing e-commerce or when you're doing in-store, e-commerce is basically Shopify to WooCommerce to whatever all the global players, and in-store is QR. So these are also scalable. So we are definitely looking at global expansion. So we are anyway looking at early next year to look at another neighboring market. Depending as a strategy point of view, we would decide which market it's going to be. But we are definitely looking at a global expansion, regional expansion actually.
Yeah, it sounds like you're also looking at a buy now, pay later as a service type of proposition, right? When you white label your technology stack and you give it to somebody who doesn't want to build it.
Yeah, yeah. That see, white labeling products has been one of the major revenue source for Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has been quite popular in doing that. So that definitely that is also in our pipeline. So we look at 4 or 5 revenue models through which we can monetize in upcoming years. So one of it is definitely white labeling because of the efficiency of our system and how autonomous and how seamless, because even the payments we work with Mastercard. So you just have to take this and put it in another country and connect it to Mastercard. The whole system would be up and running. So the whole system is like a portable and can be transferred within countries. So we definitely look at white labeling also as a service.
Yeah, that's really cool. We reached our 30 minutes mark. Let's see if there are any questions from the audience. If not, I'm also curious about a omni-channel type of strategy. You know, we talk about online a lot, but in Singapore and in Malaysia, we started to see QR codes in retail stores whereby customers can just scan and pay later, even in a offline type of setting. Is that something that you offer or you plan to offer?
So in-store has been in our pipeline from for past couple of months. So we have already developed the resources that's required to go in-store, basically using QR. But why we haven't rolled it out in Sri Lankan market at this point is because right now Sri Lanka is in the middle of a Delta variant COVID crisis. So as a responsible citizen and as a responsible company, we don't want to incentivize any of our consumers going out and doing in-store shopping, because uh, at the level, if there's a huge outbreak, Sri Lankan infrastructure won't sustain. So we are trying as hard as possible to make sure everyone transact online. And once the country situation is bit more relaxed and the COVID is down, we are definitely going in store.
Yeah, I received a question. Let me read it for you. Do you see BNPL evolving other use cases such as merchant financing or offering financial services as an investment or a wealth management to consumers? In both of these, buy now, pay later will have good quality data. Are these use cases distractions or tools to scale?
So these are anyway tools to scale. So if you look at buying, so couple of things. One is financing. Financing, you could look at it as any payment gateway. Once you understand the cash flow of your merchant, you could obviously do financing for merchant to merchant, or you could even do within between merchants because you understand their cash flow. And if you know the cash flow, you know what's the level of risk you can take it. And from customers' point of view, definitely you can make it as a wealth management tool for them, because if you grow in the right way, there's going to be a situation where basically customer directly going to connect his account where his salary or his income comes to a buy now pay later, and he's going to basically transact everything from that account. That's where you understand, okay, what is his spending pattern. Then you could also become a wealth advisor, or you could also become tools where you could help the customer start saving as well. And then you could also look at how you could work with banks to create this savings account or something and create wealth for this customer. And eventually buy now pay later, because how close it is with merchant as well as customer, it could change the life of both. It could change the life of customer as well as the merchant, because we as a company, we have in detail understanding of how this money is being spent. If you look at global unicorns also, now a lot of people are getting into payment, because so far understanding who the customer has been is good, but now everyone wants to know how a customer transacts. And that's where buy now pay later fits in perfectly in understanding how a customer transacts, and with that a lot can be done. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you make me think about open banking APIs in Europe, where the PSD2 regulation facilitated this innovation. And of course, in Southeast Asia, there are not even in Singapore or Hong Kong, you see real open banking APIs. You see a few players connecting, building the pipes in the back end, but in most cases you need still the user to log in into their online banking, which means that they need to trust the provider, and they need to trust also that money will not be taken from their account. It's a read-only type of functionality, but transactional data holds a lot of information, and within transactional data you can also detect behaviors. So I'm sure you talked about this previously. You mentioned about affordability, willingness to repay, but also the analysis of behaviors of consumers. And perhaps at some point you may also sell this data to banks willing to underwrite buy now pay later customers.
So that would come, because see, with a lot of data comes with a lot of responsibility. So it's not about only taking data, it's about understanding how you use it and being responsible enough to use the data. Otherwise, if we are going to abuse the data, we won't be different from any of these payday lenders, what they have been doing.
Yeah.
So any user cases, what we would be doing is, at the end of the day, should be beneficial for the owner of the data. If it's going to be a customer, and if we can open up a loan facility for him from a bank, then definitely we will use his data to help the bank to do it. But if it's going to be the other way around of trying to sell that data to another merchant for him to make money out of the customer, I don't think that's ethically right. And especially with the context of how global shift with data, and how even the big players in the world are getting scrutinized, I don't think that's the right way to do it with data. So we understand our responsibility with whatever data we collect. We understand the responsibility as a payment player, as a player in Sri Lanka, which is not financially developed, the level of responsibility we have to help the economy, help the banks, help the customers. So we take that with seriously. Like, even though we are a startup, we understand the maturity at which we need to operate.
Yeah, and this is refreshing to some extent. You know, you don't expect sometimes you expect startups to behave like cowboys, and I don't know if cowboys behave badly, but in Italian this is what we say, right? And but you need to do the right thing. You need to help customers do the right thing. So there is a social component to what we do. For Credolab, for example, we decided way early that we don't want to process any personal data. So we don't even know the identity of the user. And that is a key differentiating point. And it became a key differentiating point even when restrictions were introduced by Google or Apple. So we were ahead of the curve. Even when the GDPR came, we were ahead of that curve. So when you think in this way, you position yourself and your company for in a future-proof kind of way, and that is refreshing. I think we are reaching the top of the time allocated. I don't know if there are any more questions. If not, Raj, this was really good. I enjoy talking to you always, and we will be sharing the recording of this webinar so that we can also distribute to people that registered but were not able to join us today. Thank you very much again for sharing your story, your plans, and your experience, and all the best to Mintpay and the team.
Thank you so much. It was quite interesting, and it was a good opportunity to share our story, especially from a country like Sri Lanka. Like you mentioned earlier, a lot of the stories and a lot of things that happen in Sri Lanka are not always spoken out. So thank you for this wonderful opportunity, and it was great talking to you as well.
Yeah, take care and stay safe. Bye
You
bye.
too. Bye.